Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about Uranus transiting the ninth house in a natal chart. Now, on average, Uranus will transit a house for approximately 7 years. However, if your house size is a little bit larger than average, then Uranus will transit it for a little bit of a longer duration. If your house size is a little bit smaller than average, then Uranus will transit it for a little bit of a smaller period. Well, anyway, people, the first thing is when I see a Uranus transiting one's natal ninth house, this could be a time where one may adopt perhaps some unusual or unorthodox philosophies. This may be a time when one may have this need perhaps to extricate or free his or herself from a certain religion or philosophy. It could be a time when we look at this, it could be a time where you may be indoctrinated by a belief that is unusual, and it could be a religious one. It could be a time to keep in mind that the ninth house governs in-laws and grandchildren. So the relationships with these people, if you have any, could be somewhat erratic and sporadic during this time. It could, in some cases, I believe, signify perhaps an arrival of a grandchild during this period, or it can be an arrival perhaps of a son-in-law or daughter-in-law if your son or daughter may marry at this time, and therefore you get either a son-in-law or daughter-in-law, as the ninth house does govern in-laws. Well, also this could be a time where you might feel need to go to places that might be somewhat unusual. Uranus can be unpredictable. So this could be a time where if you say you were applying to go to a certain college, and you've waited for a while, you might get that unanticipated call or notification that you've been accepted after you've waited for so long. It could be a time maybe where you maybe abruptly end a certain course you're taking if you're in college or university. You may unexpectedly, maybe extemporaneously begin one. This could be a time too where perhaps the in-laws and or grandchildren, they might maybe they seem like they're somewhat unusual, or you might be seeing some ingenious qualities in one or more of these people. It could be too, when you look at the ninth house is about abstract thinking, and this could be a time where you might show this uncanny or unusual ability for abstract thinking. You may take a course in college or some higher education course, perhaps in a Uranus-like field such as electricity, maybe something with electronics. It could be something with computers such as computer programming, computer repair, just troubleshooting computers in general. It could be that maybe you decide you might want to go the route as far as higher education goes, perhaps in a more unorthodox or unconventional manner, and in such as maybe at home schooling, such as on the internet, and just study, maybe an at-home study as opposed to going to a university to learn. This could also be a time where you look at the ninth house, and it's really you talk about long distance traveling. There may be some unanticipated disruptions in connection with this. Maybe you had some plans to go somewhere, then all of a sudden they get canceled, or you might, on business, for example, you might have to take some unanticipated spontaneous trip to some other country. And the thing too is when you look at this could be a time where your philosophies can kind of have might go through a number of unanticipated changes, your belief system. It could be that a religion, you might have been connected with for a while, you might suddenly might be eradicated in terms that you might quit or and go on to another religion. I'm not saying the religion itself would be terminated, but I mean you would eradicate maybe your ties with that particular group or congregation, perhaps, that might be associated with a particular religion. It could be too, really, when you look at this, the ninth house being about long distance traveling, really it could indicate that you might meet maybe a number of people during this time, maybe that are in foreign countries, that might be eccentric, that might be unusual in some way, that might and you might see something very unique about these people, maybe even ingenious. Well, anyway, people, it's also important to look at the aspects, if any, that are made from this transit to your natal planets and points in your chart, as this could impact the transit. Now, let's say, for example, you have transiting Uranus is making a sextile or trine to your natal Saturn. Well, this could indicate that you may have some ingenious ideas that are practical at the same time, and they're not outlandish, and they could be acceptable by others. Now, being in the ninth house, perhaps they could be connected with perhaps abstract thinking, perhaps maybe long distance traveling, maybe even some ideas connected with higher education. And maybe these are shared perhaps with in-laws. Maybe these ideas, these ingenious ideas you might have during this period that might be practical, might be shared with in-laws and or grandchildren perhaps. Now, another example, let's say that transiting Uranus in your natal ninth house is making a square in conjunct or opposition to your natal Uranus. Well, this could be a time where you might be somewhat impulsive and want instantaneous change in something without necessarily weighing all the pros and cons in it, and it could be to your detriment. Now, being in the ninth house, this might apply toward making a decision connected with higher education, long distance traveling, perhaps. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Uranus transiting the ninth house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about Uranus transiting the 10th house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.